Dearest gentle listeners, you are listening to the Ladies Bridgerton, the talk of the town. We are your effervescent hosts, your neighbourhood friendly Kiwi, Tash from Middle Earth, New Zealand.
And Patty, Regency romance enthusiast whose current chapter of her story takes place in Ohio.
Settle down onto your favourite settee as we delve into the lives of the elite and illustrious ladies, lords, and royalty of the town. This Bridgerton podcast is two friends talking romance, symbolism, Easter eggs, and deep diving into the connections of our favourite characters. This podcast covers both books and TV series and therefore will contain spoilers.
Colin stands. We have reached the episode called Forces of Nature, but in Queen Charlotte speak, it would be yearning, pining. Colin is down bad. We will discuss his dream and what he really is wishing for. And what does that willow tree scene truly mean for the rom-com genre and Polin's court? My heart is a flutter.
You didn't put the right emphasis on down bad.
I did just fine for 48.
Taylor's like, down bad.
I'm not singing Taylor. I can't do her justice.
That's just a travesty. Taylor should be sung every day. You know what? That is the funny thing is I have a much lower toned voice than she does, and she sings in all of her early albums. She sings at a really high note. I do it. I just sound terrible doing it. But her new albums are way more melancholy, so they are sung much lower, and I can at least somewhat keep up. Terribly, but keep up.
Well, my allergy and lymph is moving so there's a little too much muck and gunk in there for me to pull off Taylor.
But the emphasis can't be down bad. It's down bad. Colin's down bad.
He's down bad.
He's down bad. He's in his deep feels. He's in his depressive.
Queen Charlotte is just walking up to the house, knocking, asking for Colin. He walks down and she pats his head. Sorrows, prayers, and leaves every day.
Now we must make haste into today's episode. We get to start out this episode so excitingly because in the last Polin episode, we left off with a kiss. It was more than a kiss. It was everything.
It was glorious.
It was glorious. And what do we get to start this episode with?
A kiss.
A kiss. Another kiss. And this one's considered like the last one was romance, souls connecting. It was everything. This one
it was soft and sweet, and even if in the books Colin acknowledges to himself that he should make it a certain kind of way because it's her first kiss, I feel like show Colin is making it a certain kind of way because he knows this is her first kiss and he wants it to be special for her. He very much is always, because he's Colin, he puts everybody before himself. And so I think he is definitely putting Penelope's experience before his own.
I think it's also that I think they even say it in the book, like this is like his own first kiss because it's the first kiss between people, lovers, if you will. A kiss between two people who actually love each other. And they do love each other at this point. To what capacity? Obviously, love grows. Love is not finite. Love cannot be boxed in. Love is in so many forms.
Well, and again, I believe they both loved each other, but this is the catalyst in every rom-com that two friends realize that their friend is a sexual being. There is a sexual awakening. And even though this was a very sweet kiss, there was that awakening for the both of them. Penelope is a lot better at guarding herself, so you don't see it with her until he's yanking on that rope, really. But it affects Colin immediately. Like, if she would have just looked in his eyes before running off.
And I think it actually affects him more than her because she has always been very openly aware of her attraction to him, of her love to him. Not obviously the rope was like a whole different level of attraction, but I think she's always accepted her own feelings towards Colin a lot more openly than he has her. And so I think that kiss affected him viscerally, that he did not know that he could feel this much about anyone, and so but I also think like she went into it, she had that added level of embarrassment because she's asking someone that she believes is never going to ever think of her like that, and where she's acting like favor. She's asking for a favor,
She realizes she's got to be careful. She can't give away too much during the kiss, right? So she's not, having never kissed before, she's kind of following his lead, but holding back. And I think she doesn't really feel the changes in him or notice the changes in him because, and we find out later in the carriage that when she's involved with Colin, she no longer pays attention to anything. So she was in the moment herself, but having all these thoughts in her head of, I can't give myself away, but I want to enjoy this while I'm in the moment. And she was just so much in her head that she wasn't noticing his breath change, the way he breathed change, the way he was holding her face changed. Like so much about him changed when during that kiss that if she would have just noticed those things, they would have had a very different outcome. But because she was so in her head and then she had all this embarrassment, that's how we end up having this whole episode is simply because Penelope did not open her eyes and look up at the end of that kiss.
She was too embarrassed to.
Too embarrassed, yes. And had to get out of Dodge as quick as.
And I think when I first initially watched this dream scene, I think almost immediately I was aware the way that they kind of filmed it, to me at least, was being very obnoxiously obvious that it was a dream, but we were probably led to believe that it was Penelope's dream.
Well, and I tried to go back to our voice notes today because I was hoping to screen record and capture all of them, but sadly, sorrow's prayers, Facebook Messenger would not let me go back that far. I am pretty sure
I'm up to July 19th.
And now we watched the second half, but I'm pretty sure when we started talking and sending voice clips about the first 4 episodes after we watched the second half and after we started talking about doing the podcast together, we both said when we first watched it, I knew when I watched that second it happened, I knew it was a dream because of the mist. And yes. I instantly got Pride and Prejudice vibes. I felt like
I was about to say that was such a Darcy moment.
Yeah, it was such a Darcy moment. And, like he's painting himself the romantic lead in his own dream. You know what I'm saying?
Misunderstood romantic lead.
Yeah, he is the brooding romantic, and Pride and Prejudice was actually out in 1815, not Emma. So I could see Colin, having read Pride and Prejudice, would be dreaming that he was Darcy, walking up to.
Except I don't think he has, because he calls it a silly rom-com or something.
Right. But I'm saying he's calling it silly to Eloise, who he thinks is reading feminist tropes. But romantic Colin probably read it on the ship on the way home. Oh, what's this? What? Oh, a romance? I'm in my feels about the girl that's not writing me. Yes, I will read it. I could see it. It would be a guilty pleasure. He wouldn't tell anybody. He would keep that to himself.
Remind me, it was July 15th that Part 2 came out?
June 13th, because it was May 16th.
Oh, May 16th. Yeah. Okay, I've got a whole month.
If you're past July 9th, you got farther than me.
No, I'm only at July 16th.
Oh.
I've been scrolling for so long, and my phone is short-circuiting because
I'm going to be so sad if I can't get back to them, because that was a project that I've had on my list for.
I know, and then we just keep talking too much we've just swept.
I know, we just keep making it worse and making it worse and making it worse, and then it makes the task so much bigger, which is why I can't do it.
Yes.
But so with this opening, and I love all the reactions on TikTok where people didn't realize it was a dream, and then Colin wakes up from it. But to me, I think it's pretty obvious, and the fact that I clocked the second she walked out that she's in a nightgown and dressing robe.
And not to mention the fact that Colin, as Luke Newton and Nicola had very over-the-top acting in the scene to kind of give you the point that it wasn't their real selves. This was a fabricated self of them both.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Penelope just stood there with her arms down to her sides, very wooden almost. I felt like,
but
until she said,
feel that was a corsetting issue as well.
Maybe, or the fact that his brain just couldn't. We know how our brains work in dreams. I just think some of my theories about this dream. I think he purposely was keeping her just still because any type of movement would be almost like other memories of other women are tainting his dream Penelope, because your brain mixes stimuli when you dream. Yes. Your neurons, the way your neurons fire. So you could have a specific face of somebody that you saw in a crowd, but it's on a body of someone that you know
Yeah.
very well. So you consider it to be that person, but they look funny. They look weird. I've had that like I think I'm hugging my sister, but when I step back, it's somebody completely different in the face, and it just throws you off in your dream. Like, I
I
could have
quite
sworn I was hugging my
often
sister a minute ago.
like I quite often get where it'll be in my brain. I know that it's Stephen, but it doesn't look like my husband as he looks now. But in the dream, I know that it's my husband and not just any
Yeah.
husband, but my specific husband.
And I always have dreams where I'm like in a house and it's a house I don't recognize, but I know in my dream it's my house.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's my sister's house or it's my mom's house or whatever, but it's a house I've never been in.
Which means you've probably seen it in a movie or somewhere in
Yeah.
passing because
Well, and
our brains can't fabricate what doesn't exist.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
weird.
so let's talk about Penelope's outfit. You touched on it a little bit. So Colin's walking up. Let's talk about let's set the scene for our listeners. I love how romantical because it's very very similar to their initial kiss scene, but with all these like super romantic fire
Yeah,
land.
writer
And
Colin
what do you call
dreamt in
those?
his
The big
like the torchieres.
is that what they're called?
Sure. Torchieres are just those
Big
torchieres are just
pillars.
tall. Yeah, like it's a pillar like with a torch on top
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um
And they have used them again in season 4 for the Masquerade Ball.
yeah. Well, and I think the reason I think that the torchieres are important because light is important
Yeah.
and flame, like when we see the candle go out in the next episode,
Hmm.
it's signaling to him that time is running out. Like
Yeah.
he has to get off the pot. I mean,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term, but he's got to make his move or he's going to lose her forever. And all of these torchieres, I think that we see are because everything up to this point has really kind of just been candlelight. Yes, the balls and stuff have all been lit with candles and torchieres outside. But I think they're kind
This
of
was a
the
moment of
torchieres are more indicative
passion.
of his passion growing
Yes.
and he put those in because in the kiss scene they just had moonlight and like writer Colin, that's just not romantic enough. He wanted to see Penn in warm light, obviously,
Hmm.
because the moon is very cool blue light, and he wanted warm light. He wanted her pink. And I've
But it's so
posted this in the
romantic.
I know
That whole scene.
I posted this in the group July, I think. It was like months ago. But the dressing gown she's wearing, the nightgown and the dressing gown over it. First of all, he's never seen her in anything like this, and the fact that he's dreaming that to me means that he's thinking more domestically because that's not lingerie by any means. We saw Kate wear what would have been lingerie of the time.
Undergarments,
This
yeah.
is more along the lines of what a girl would have made for her trousseau, yes, but it's
Very demure,
it's
very
yeah,
mindful, very
yeah,
cutesy.
very mindful and demure. But he has a thing for
Um,
an outfit that still looks like her dress, but it's night clothes and it's very satiny and the robe is like flowy and the ribbons are blowing in the wind.
don't mean to
What?
actively excite you, but I'm up to July
Did you
7th.
get there?
I'm up July
Oh,
7th.
you got past the night.
I got past the
Yay!
night.
Nice. But yes, she's very romantically dressed. It's a very flowy, shimmery, satiny. And personally, the two colors I think he likes her in the most, which are the pinks. There's pinks all over it. And that green from season 2, when she comes running down the hill, when she first comes out to Aubrey Hall,
Yes.
that green matches. It is the same shade of green. And she ran down that hill, and you can't tell me we know what he was looking at, her running down that hill. Just saying.
Bounce, bounce, bounce.
Bouncy, bouncy. But yes, she's and her hair's down, like all the way down. It's not styled at all.
No.
Her hair is just, it is a very domestic look. And I think because his dream with Penelope, even this early on of the beginning of the yearning and pining, is not passionate. It's yes, he is passionate, but he wants that domestication. He wants to be a husband. He wants to have a family. So she's dressed very domestically there. And yes, they do kiss and it becomes passionate, but I mean, he walks up to her in a way and she's just already there. She's waiting. That's important. She's already waiting for him. He didn't have to go find her.
No.
She's there and waiting.
Colin, what are you doing here?
And then
I had
what
to
does
see
she
you.
say in the dream? Because what she says is the most important thing. And think about what he says to Cressida when he goes to talk to Cressida about
Mhm.
the Lady Whistledown reveal. He says, I yearned for word from home, from Penelope, in fact. And it seemed that everybody went on their lives without me in them. So, like, without
Mm.
a thought for me. And when he tells her, like, I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't even speak, and, just thinking about it, she's like,
Colin.
I feel the same.
Well, and
You occupy my every thought.
but he
You
says
occupy my every thought.
the first thing, she says, Colin, and then he says, thank you for meeting me. Like it was prearranged.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, he beckoned, so he let her know somehow, and she was there. She was given the choice, and she showed up, which I think is important because Colin is all about choice and consent. He even dreamed Colin needed to hear that he asked her to show up and she was present. And then when he confesses and he tells her that he can't stop thinking about the two of them, she says, I feel the same. You occupy my every thought. Now think about it. Every thought, his dream Penelope never stops thinking about him ever because he just felt like nobody thought about him ever.
And the funny thing
So what he
is everything that Penelope has done for the last few years, including Lady Whistledown, has all been in service of her love for Colin.
right. Like,
So even
and
even
this
his
tells
even
you
his
just
dream
how.
Penelope is on point.
But the thing is he thinks it's a dream.
Mm.
He doesn't realize it's reality. He's too afraid to ask, but he can dream it out. And if you think of, she says she has something that completely destroys this theory, so I'm waiting to hear it, but she can't
I'm
remember it. ADHD.
I'm honestly so
But
annoyed. I sat there for half, so
personally,
I'm exhausted. I got to sleep at 7 a.m. this morning because this cold,
yeah.
this chest infection is still just giving me so much flack. And then having my son's head cold now on top of that, my son caught a head cold, silling me for taking him into indoor playgrounds in school holidays. Great life choices. But so
But
I'm
I
my
think, like,
my
we
brain
have
ain't braining.
Colin. Yeah, we have Colin, who's the king of consent, and he is a gentleman. And I think it's very important because we know, and I mean, I should be letting you say this because you're the one who pointed out. So this part I'm putting in the footnotes. Tosh said originally, and we were talking
Tosh
about it in
Cannon.
that, as we do, if you take something, because usually things get revealed in the future and then you have to take what gets revealed and go backwards and look at that now through the lens of the future. And we know from the confession in the carriage that he prefers sleep because that's where he will find her.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this dream, and we have, I mean, I'll let you talk about Benedict and whatever when we get there. But so we know that he's seeking her out in this dream. We know that he wants her to be thinking about him. We know that that his first things first, he didn't just walk up to her like in a dream. Dreams have no rules. He could have just walked up to her and immediately started kissing her. We've seen
Dreams
that in
don't have,
rom-coms.
they don't have sequence per se. It just kind of skips between
Yeah.
scenes.
So this is very sequential. And the fact that before anything physical happens, he gets her feelings for him first, that's really what the dream is about.
Yes.
Is finding out she feels the same and finding out that he occupies her every thought. That's what Colin wants to know. That's what matters to him. And then he kisses her and it starts getting heated. The focus zooms in onto Penelope only. It's his dream. Zooms into Penelope only. And then he jerks awake. Now, if we know he prefers sleep because that's where he finds her, is he jerking awake? Why? It's not because it's so shocking, because he keeps laying in bed hoping to fall back asleep. I've had those days.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really liked the dream I was having before I woke up. And I would be like, I'm just going to go back to sleep 20 minutes.
Maybe that was my train of thought. I think you're unraveling my train of thought here. I don't think it was necessarily that he was the consent king and so he stopped himself. I think it was that he actively wanted to stay asleep and he spent his hours wishing to be asleep because that is where he could be with her. And in the next scene when he's talking with Benedict and Benedict calls out, oh, you slept in really late. And I love that they bring this part up, and we'll talk about it a little bit more again later in this episode. But
But that's what I'm saying, though. He wants to be asleep and in the
yes.
dream because that's where she is. But he jerks himself awake when it is about to go beyond the kiss. Now, mind you, in a season of mirrors as a theme, and a lot of mirrors are not physical mirrors. This is a mirror scene to
Hmm.
Daphne, his closest in age sister. Also, in regards to how society works and playing the society game, I think they are the two closest.
In the books, they were the closest.
And I think they kind of visualize, they both have an issue with perfectionism. And she has a dream about Simon, and they're dancing, and then he takes her glove off and he runs his hand up her arm and he leans in to kiss her, and then she wakes up. And that's when we learn that's a dream she's having. But why is all that important? Because she has no idea what the marital act is at this point. She's never been kissed. So she wakes up before the kiss happens because she has nothing to reference to continue the dream, per se. She's already at the heightened sense of whatever this is. She hasn't
Hmm.
identified that yet as sexual desire because she doesn't know what the act is fully yet.
Well,
So she
in the
jerks
books,
awake because
in the books, it always says, every single one of Julia Quinn's books, it always says she had this feeling growing inside her from her core. She didn't know what the feeling
yeah,
was, and it overtakes her body. Desire, my
right.
girl.
Right. It's always described the same way. But
Yes.
like she jerks awake, honestly, because her brain cannot form, because your brain creates the visuals in your head when you're dreaming. Your brain creates those synapses and neurons firing because you're processing your day or your few weeks or whatever it is. So it only can process what it's already downloaded, if you think
Hmm.
of your brain like a computer. So because she doesn't have those experiences, the dream cannot go any further than it is. So the dream stops. She wakes up. Colin has had those experiences. So his brain in his dream could take Penelope and then take experiences he's had with other ladies and amalgamate them together so that he could then fantasize and create the furthering of their passion if that was the goal of his dream. But it's not, because Colin is domestic and he's in love and he wants to marry her and he wants them to be a family and he wants to be as important to her as she now is to him, or has always been, but really now. But I think that a big reason why he wakes up is because she asked him to kiss her. That made it okay. So now, fair game, Penelope, I'm going to dream about kissing you all the time because you said it was okay. But he has not gotten permission for anything else. And he's not, I think, subconsciously, because we talked about this in one of our other pods, where you kind of can control your dreams if you are aware it's a dream.
Yeah.
And I just think he doesn't want to taint any experience with Penelope with memories of his experiences with other women. So he jerks himself awake because he wants to be in the dream. We can't assume he jerked himself awake because he's surprised or shocked, but he jerks himself awake because he cannot let it continue. A, it would not be healthy for him. And B, he would feel bad for compromising Penelope in an aspect she has no control over.
I'm definitely not watching it on replay at the moment.
But that's just my theory. Like everybody sees this as an awakening of his passion, and the dream is about passion because of the kiss itself, but it's just not. It's his brain is processing what he truly wants, and what he truly wants is for her to want him, her to be thinking about him, and her to be feeling the same way he's feeling for her.
Mm.
Not it's not about it's not, and passion is always involved when you're talking about that kind of romantic love, but the dream itself is not about passion. It's not becoming any kind of sex dream at all. And he's too much of a gentleman. He's not going to let that happen because she has not said that's okay.
And I think he also doesn't, I think he wants his first time with her because I think he's had enough experiences that he could probably dream his way through at least a vast majority to like he may imagine, as we were saying, her face, but on someone else's body. And I think he wants
like
his
even
first
Colin in the
time.
book said, I've dreamt of this a million times and had seen different pairs of breasts.
Wait, there we go. Thank you, breasts. That was my thought pattern. That was my thought pattern. Thank you so much. Because when he is undressing her in the mirror scene, he's talking about how many times he's dreamt of certain parts of her body. And that was when I was like, Patty, you're done for. He's been dreaming about these breasty lesties.
But that doesn't mean
I'm
he's
so
been dreaming that.
happy. I'm so happy. Oh my lord.
And here's my rebuttal. Here's my rebuttal. You can dream of parts, but in a gentlemanly way. Like she was very sexily dressed with plenty showing. He's definitely dreaming of those parts.
I mean, haven't we all dreamed of those parts? They are phenomenal.
Right.
I'm so relieved. It's like,
yeah.
What do they call it? A worm, like a worm.
Well, and honestly, it's possible he's progressed as time went on. Or I mean, could have all those dreams happened that night after the carriage?
I'm just so relieved to have finally found my thread. Like, honestly.
But you get what I'm saying?
We spent entire hour before recording this podcast, me sitting there with
her trying to get her train of thought, yeah.
Like, I went to sleep at 7 a.m. this morning because of my cold and everything, and my brain is just not braining the way that it usually brains. And this has been bothering me so much because we recorded yesterday, and I had like this big thought, and then I was like, no, I'll save it for today's podcast. And then today rolls around. I didn't write it down. I didn't voice note it anywhere. And I completely forgot it. And I'm like, no, needs discussing because all the parts are all connected.
Well, and the
breast is connected to the breastbone.
Truthfully, this is within a week of the kiss. So he still might be like, oh, I can't go that far yet. I can't do that. You can't do that, right? But then as he's sitting there wasting away,
I love how you like
while she might be with somebody. She might end up with somebody else. He probably indulged himself a little bit.
Well, what I'm thinking is that he's seen it, because corsets don't leave a huge amount to the imagination. I think he's got enough imagination that he can probably figure out the rest of what's going on under that corset. And I think that, as we were saying, like when I dream of my husband sometimes, it's my husband, and I know it's my husband, but it doesn't look exactly like my husband. And obviously I know every inch of my husband's body, but sometimes your brains just do weird things. So I wonder whether he has, certain parts of Luke's just dreaming of Nicola. I've been on TikTok too much today.
Right? The ship be shipping.
The ship be shipping so hard at the moment. Tell me why in my blind state at the moment.
Yeah, I wasn't doing pictures against pictures of fingers at all.
So there was a picture of Nicola posted to her, was it her Instagram story, I believe it was, and it had a picture, and if you look in the background behind, so it was a picture of her getting ready for her 100.
Why are you're explaining my fingers picture like what I said is gross?
No.
Like you have to explain your friend to people.
No. This is my friend Patty. She has a problem.
She's inappropriate.
No, you know what the funny thing is I was explaining my problem.
I am not demure.
I was explaining my own problem because here I was thinking that Luke Newton was wearing a watch, a white strappy kind of watch.
Well, we're just straight up saying it's Luke now. We're not even pretending.
Wait, I know those fingers, Patty. I have studied those fingers. I have done dissertations.
I did the side-by-side picture.
So here I am, and I've got this watch that I think is a watch because I'm blind and stupid and tired. And tell me why I went through every single one of Luke Newton's posts for the whole way down his entire Instagram, looking for that watch to see if I'd ever seen it. And then when I couldn't find it, I went to Jake Dunn's because I was like, he also has a similar body profile in a lying down position. So I was like, okay, maybe it's Jake Dunn. Maybe I'm just going to burst my own bubble here.
Lying down position.
So here I am scrolling through every single bloody post for the last couple years looking for the stupid watch, only for Patty to say, Tash, that's just a wrist cuff peeking out.
It's a cuff of an undershirt.
So here I am thinking I'm being this like sleuth Instagram stalker. And then Patty goes and looks for the signet ring, so I'm not the only absolute freak out there. Thank you for matching my freak, Patty.
Well, I didn't go looking for it, to be fair.
Oh.
All of these other shippers, like I truly am not a shipper. Like
But if there's
I
info
believe
out
you
there,
can.
I'm gonna verify it.
Well, yes, and that's the whole thing. Like you and Kay have got me like almost when I see something, I let you
Join
know
the
because I know
train.
it's
Join
going
the
to
train.
perpetuate your
Choo
belief
choo.
system.
Choo choo. Chugga
And
chugga
the
chugga
more
chugga chugga choo choo. Get on the
the more
crazy
I
train.
the more I find stuff that perpetuates your belief system, the more I'm like, but I really do feel like I personally, if
I
anything
know those
occurred, like I've
fingers.
said, is right. I think it's like a work wife, work husband thing. That's my opinion. 'Cause,
Mm-hmm.
I just think
Mm-hmm.
like when they're working
Well,
now,
maybe she was
like
just
they were
giving
romancing.
she was just giving Bridgerton fans a taste of what they were missing, making sure she got his best assets front and center in that picture.
Well, I think personally the picture purposely shows two people together, like, or that somebody is in the picture who's not the focal point. I think that
Mm-hmm.
was purposeful. And yes, the not so much the fingers, but I mean the shape, the way they're held, all of that. There can only be a few in her circle that could
Patty
be,
has not
honestly.
Patty has not investigated every inch of those fingers.
No, I have a thing for hands. Saying Darcy hand, I have a
Mm-hmm.
thing for hands.
And I think he made a conscious
So,
choice to kind of make that a thing, especially with the pulling up of the dress.
mhm.
I think he
Well,
was
and I
like,
in watching those
Darcy
in
is
watching those presser documentaries from Emmet, he always says how surprised he is that people notice that detail when they didn't even notice it. Yet he's the one that did it. And in Brazil, he said, "I thought of it. That was a conscious choice."
hmm
So yeah, it's hard to know what is real and what is fantasy when in one moment you're like, I'm so surprised people caught a detail that we hadn't even focused on or hadn't even noticed, and then he admits that it's a conscious choice when it became
I
such a
thought
big
it
thing.
was one of the other hand things that Luke Thompson does that there's an interview of Luke Thompson where they're saying he's like wringing his fingers when talking to Lady Tilly where she's trying to convince him to go upstairs because her servants are very discreet and he's doing something with his hands and the fans
It's
really picked
he
up
says
on it.
he's met other men like Paul before is when
Yeah,
he's doing it.
and he's like wringing his hands and that kind of thing. And someone asked him like, was that a conscious choice? And he said sometimes when you get so deep into your character, you just make certain choices that it's not even a choice. It just comes completely naturally to you when you immerse yourself in that character. And it isn't a choice he
Because
made,
that's
but
the
it's a thing. It
right.
is.
It's the character. There's a difference between when you are being a person and feeling their feelings and like in that moment he wants to reveal that he has been trying to think of the best word to say that because I don't think it's like something
Exposed to. He's
I
been
don't think it's something
exposed to
he's
that environment.
fantasized about. Yeah,
He's been
he's
exposed to
been
that environment.
exposed and he has considered it. And I think he's afraid of saying that he's considered it
Yeah.
because he's afraid of what Tilly would say at that point. And that's why his hands are doing what they're doing because
Yeah.
that the character of
I
Benedict
think
in
it's,
that moment
I don't think he's not afraid of anything that she would say. He's afraid of saying it out loud because then he has to acknowledge it in his own heart.
that and she hasn't said anything about anybody being discreet yet and he doesn't know who to trust because that is something that you do not put out in the world.
No.
He is wondering if he's in a safe space. That is keeping something to yourself because you're not sure you're in a safe space. And that is, there are some actor choices that are very conscious, like Claudia stepping behind Gregory was a conscious actor choice to steal the thunder in the room to be funny for people to notice. I don't mean Claudia's trying to steal Francesca's thunder. I just think like she made a choice in that moment to be funny and it worked.
Yeah.
But then there are things that you just do in service of the character because they have inhabited your body, so to speak. You are now them because that's what actors do. They become that person
Method acting.
that yeah that the like all of like Nicola was talking in an interview about her eye thing that we've talked about where she kind of closes her eyes and
Yes.
does this really deep blink and I honestly think that's her that kind of that dope moment, from The Simpsons where she's like, I
hmm
shouldn't have said that or whatever. Like, the reading thing, like, my mama says I should put up my books, and she's like, does that little squint.
If I just close my eyes hard enough, maybe I can just make the world disappear
Yeah,
for just a moment.
as an
hmm
ostrich, she's hiding her head in the sand for a second
hmm
and trying to minimize herself back into herself because she let too much of herself be revealed, she believes. And then Colin does something similar when he's about to say something very important. And I don't know if Luke Newton did this as a conscious choice or if it's just something that occurred because he was inhabiting Colin Bridgerton. When he goes to say something important and he is kind of concerned about how it will be received, but he knows it has to be said anyway, he closes his eyes. He doesn't squint them shut. He closes them, and it's almost like he's reading the script he's created, because we know Colin creates his speeches and he practices them and he thinks of them. But when he's in the moment and he has to say stuff, he's not as confident about the words that are going to come out of his mouth. So he does it in those moments too, but he has that moment. Like when he says, it's a torture that I cannot, will not, do not want to. When he says do not want to, he closes his eyes. It's very important. And that's the part where he's actually giving away his feelings to her. The cannot, will not are out of his control.
Yeah.
The do not want to is within. So that's the important thing. And then when he says to Portia, like I can't remember exactly the words, but it's when he's saying that she's the most eligible amongst them. There's a moment where he closes his eyes and reopens them because what he's about to say is important. It could change his relationship with his future mother-in-law. He understands that's an important statement. And I don't know if Luke Newton did that as a conscious choice or if he did that as, just within that character and it becomes a thing that you notice later. But it works because it shows you what he is saying in that moment is very important to Colin. And he isn't sure if it's something that should come out of his mouth. And growing up in the family that he does, they are very conscious of what they put out into the world because they want to be a credit to their family. So I think some things are definite actor choices and some things are just in the moment because you have become one with that character.
Yeah. And I think Luke Newton makes a lot of really minuscule act choices that just absolutely sell me on why there is no other Colin Bridgerton for me. Luke Newton is Colin Bridgerton. And I think that even when certain scripting choices have been made this year, he is still able to convey everything as viewers that we need to know if we just look at, and people say this all the time, that I don't listen to what people say, I how they act, like actions speak louder than words. And for me, Colin's actions speak louder than his words. Yes.
Well, and for all the people I'm sorry to interrupt, but for all the people out there who try and come at me about it's just a story and this is what they say, so that's what we have to go verbatim with what is happening. The perfect scene after the dream kiss is the drawing room when he comes into breakfast late, because everything he says is withholding the truth. He's holding back, and you can tell because of his body language that he's not being fully truthful with his family and he is not letting them in on his thought process. So the words that are coming out of his mouth are not the story that's going on in that scene
I very much believe that nobody knows a character as well as the actor themselves. Nobody. I don't care if you were the one who wrote the character. I don't care if you're the one who scripted the character. I don't care if you're the one who created the clothing choices. All of that. Nobody knows the character in their hearts as well as the actor themselves. And we see it with really, really great actors. Henry Cavill, for example, season 2 of The Witcher absolutely fell on its face because the director tried to force him into character choices that veered away from the book so far. And Henry Cavill's a nerd. He is a big nerd. And so he was a huge fan of the video games, of the books. And he's like, this isn't the character arc. And I refuse to play it that way. And he actually got into full-on fights with the director because he refused to play the character in a way that he felt was completely against the grain of who that character is. We're having the same thing with Emily in Paris this season, where the actor who plays Gabrielle is distancing himself from his character. He's literally changed his hair in real life because he's like, I no longer feel connected to my character because they have made him say things and made choices this season that I don't feel align with my character, and he's distanced himself from it. And I think that is a thing. I think directors need to actually listen to the actors more sometimes and acknowledge that nobody knows the character. Yes, I know that they are trying to spin a certain story, a certain whatever. Those actors know their character better than anyone else. And I
Right.
absolutely stand Luke Newton for what he has done this season. He did not want to say the line, I would never dream of courting Penelope Featherin. He did not want to say that. Yes, it was in the books, but it was said in a very different context, and it was far
And
less cruel.
he did not say in the books, I would never court Penelope Featherington, not in your wildest dreams. He
No,
was frustrated with his mother for bringing her name up yet the 10 millionth time.
he was
And
just jesting with his brothers.
he said in frustration to his brothers, I will not marry Penelope Featherington because she was all about them getting married. And
And
it's not,
and the brothers
it's
knew better
very
because they were like,
different.
I give it 2 years, they'll be
Yeah,
married.
I give it 1 year. Nah, I give it two. I'm telling you, I still wish they would have slid money across the table
I
in
do
that
too.
scene.
Like, here's your
That
money.
would have
Okay,
been
you were right.
that would have been
They
something.
should
That
have.
would have been an Easter egg just for the book
Mm-hmm.
readers.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been perfection. And show fans would have just been like, what's going on? Who cares? Book fans would have been like, they love us. They actually like us. They
Yeah,
like the book
I
fans.
really think there are ways to cater to the book fans while still pushing the narrative and a
Mm-hmm.
story that fits into 2024, because these books were written in a much less culturally aware, a
Yeah.
lot less not culturally aware. What
We
is
were
the
not
term?
self-aware as a society.
We said some things that I could not say today. And I think everyone did because that was just the culture back then. And I think we have to accept that like, some things that were said back then, if people have learned and they've grown and they've gotten with the times and they've showed, penance for it, you just have to accept it.
Well, and all of these
So
books were written during a
depending,
time where toxic masculinity was not considered
prevalent
toxic.
is
It was
prevalent.
just
Yeah.
considered
Masculinity.
masculinity.
Alpha
And
male.
so a lot of romances are written with very abusive, angry men getting more abusive and more angry when they're
To show
falling
their
in love
love.
with the
Yeah.
protagonist. Yeah.
Because they're the only ones they can show
So
their true feelings to. And apparently men only have true feelings. The only true feelings that they have is either lust or anger.
right. And I think that's why there was so much difficulty. And I mean, these are words right out of Jess Brownell's mouth that she had so much trouble writing Colin Bridgerton because Colin Bridgerton in the book does
Julia
not
Quinn
become my
did not
favorite
write him well.
brother. Colin does not become my favorite brother until the epilogue into the next books.
Yes.
He gets married first. When he gets married, he becomes the best husband, the best romantic lead because he fully embraces it. Like
He is basically what Anthony is this season for us. Like, absolutely spitting with his wife, a wanton for her, just happy partners, equals, all of that. That is what I am expecting from season 3.
And Colin in the books was very absent. Like he ran off and traveled and disappeared. One, to avoid being pushed off into the marriage mart by his mother. Two, he just loved traveling. He loved the experience of it. He loved delving into different cultures and things like that. And he would just get caught up in it. Very much ADD for the 1800s, just having his special interest, being gone for a few years and then just randomly showing up at home. But they changed it. I think they made a lot of good changes with show Colin. I think Luke Newton has ran marathons with the show character of Colin Bridgerton because you can sit any actor on that show down and interview them and them talk about their character. And trust me, I have watched so many interviews and with all of them talking. And Claudia Jessie has literally said the day she no longer gets to be Eloise Bridgerton, she's going to shatter in a million pieces. And it shows. Yeah. She has put so much into that character. And the way Luke Newton talks about Colin Bridgerton and how he has enjoyed helping this character grow and creating the different facets of this character every single season, like he has invested so much of himself. And I'll even say, like, Nicola gives it her all, absolutely. But I don't even see her doing the kind of work like, and she just doesn't publicize it or talk about it as much. Maybe, who knows? Luke Newton might be like the C student that has to work harder to get the C's, but that shows just as much initiative and everything. Not saying Colin is a C character at all. That's not what I'm saying, but you have you're two different kinds of students and it comes really easy to one person, but another person has to work a little harder. And Luke Newton just, to me, worked a little harder. And I think he had to, because I think there was a lot more emotional vulnerability that had to come from Colin this season than Penelope.
Yeah.
Penelope, yes, she cries in a carrot, but she's openly being abused and hurt. Colin is not openly
Patty,
being abused and hurt by
hands
anyone.
off the table. My head can't take it today.
Sorry. But and I'm doing it right by the mic, which is
my head's just like
But I just think that like what he did with the character in the little micro expressions, because Colin lives in his head. So the micro expressions and then all of the emotional roller coaster that he goes through. Like, I mean, come on. He just
It is easy to miss if you are just watching the show for surface feature, but if you're actually paying close attention, you can see all those micro expressions Colin is constantly portraying on his face, and his face is incredibly expressive. And we see it as soon as he wakes up from that dream, just how viscerally he is affected by it.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about the
and
my
favorite micro expression in this episode that we're talking about today. I don't mean the whole episode because there's quite a few. In the whole sweet shop thing, there's about 70 million. But when he wakes up and he shoots up and obviously glistening in sweat, like this dream affected him. But then he turns his head, he sees the sunlight, and he just does this mad face. Like he's frustrated. He's like, no, I have to get, like, the sun is too high. Like you can almost see that whole thought process on his face.
He is literally huffing and puffing. Like he is going like,
yeah, he just shoots up and he's like,
he's been running a marathon, Patty. He's been putting his work.
He had to catch his breath, and then he just sees that light is pouring into those windows, and he's not a happy man.
We don't know that. We don't know that where he woke up was where the dream left off, because he looks like he's been doing some hard yards.
She says his name and says his name and says his name, and he wakes up. I think they focused us on Penelope saying his name, and we don't know what his body was going through in that moment. But
I think we can we can put our brains together and come up with some ideas.
I personally think they had him shoot up in bed so that we didn't notice any tent.
Well, because we even get it in the book. In the book where they have their first kiss, he openly not admits out loud, but like, because we're getting it from his perspective, we've got his thoughts.
We know he's aroused. Yeah,
he is. And this moment isn't like a sweet, gentle kiss like the first one.
Not
this
like their first kiss. This is
passion.
He called upon his experience for this kiss.
Has her pressed up against a wall or a frame.
Like a true gentleman, he protects her from the stone. His hand is up behind her head. Like if she was going to go back too far, she'd hit his hand and not the wall.
But he is like bodies connected. The full length of him is pressed against her gentle skin, as he put it. Poor guy, I'm looking at this. He has to lean down so far.
I know. He probably had to have tons of massages on his neck and shoulders through filming. I'm just saying. And in the scenes, like, it always cracks me up. Like in the scene after the Modiste where she jumps up on that curb, and you know she has to because they're about to fight and stuff. And then when he pushes her into the doorway, like she steps up onto that step, because it's just, he's going to end up being a stooped over old man. And so is Benedict Bridgerton, because Sophie's so short. They're going to be old men just hunched over at the neck. They're gonna be like, but my neck hurts.
This is where we're now discovering the true history of the hunchback.
Yeah, they're gonna have that humpback because they bend over so much standing up to kiss their wives, and their poor little wives. I mean, you see it so much in the mirror scene when she starts kissing him. Like she can't even stay up on her toes.
I know. Like
she has to go down for a rest and then come back up. Oh, so funny. But yeah, so the kiss is very passionate.
I love the whole time the way that yes, it is not at all 1815 makeup, but this is one of my favorite makeup jobs on Penelope, for the way that the light reflects on it, and not light, the way that the flames reflect off. Everything is kind of the silvery golden, sparkle,
very fleck. Ephemeral,
very ethereal, very goddess,
very Greek goddess, like, yeah.
and like even the way that the flames light,
Isn't there
like
something you wanted to say about the scene and Eros and Psyche, by the way, before we gallop away from the kissing scene, dream scene?
I don't know, Patty. I don't know anything anymore.
I'm trying to set you up here. Yes, because you researched it and you said that this whole set
I thought I'd
looks
already
like a painting.
I thought I'd brought that up in a previous
We
episode
kind
though.
of talked about it, but we said we would get into it when we talked about it.
Yeah, so let me pause.
When did you pause it?
I told you.
You keep pausing and not
I,
making it obvious.
I said, let me pause so I can Google this. So, okay, the painting is a famous painting by a guy called John Waterhouse, and it is the garden. It is Eros's garden that Psyche is entering when she first goes to go be his wife.
Do you notice about this painting what I notice about this painting and what occurs once and then kind of occurs twice?
No,
What is exposed on Psyche?
her shoulder.
Her left shoulder.
Yeah.
Her dress is pulled down.
Colin really likes himself Greek mythology.
But yeah, it's
Actually,
very
and Psyche paintings, in most of them, a few of them, shall I say, the left shoulder is always pulled down and exposing just one breast, because two would be too excitement. Just one breast.
well, and they do that a lot because there's a lot of Aphrodite art that when I was in researching the story in one, Leander and Hero.
Hero, yeah.
Yeah. And Aphrodite is included in both of those stories, is integral in both of those stories.
That's because
So
Aphrodite's mean.
looking up Aphrodite art, Aphrodite is depicted much the same way most of the time. One breast.
Just one. Don't want to excite you. I mean, Colin's already excited. Like, look at his heart rate. Like, you can literally see it. And this is what I mean by he's a phenomenal actor, because his heart rate, like, he's visibly heavily breathing, but not just that. You can see in his neck that, like, his pulse is going. He's swallowing deeply. Like, the whole Adam's apple, like, really doing the work.
And personally, considering the brothel scene, when he's in the brothels, everything is so mechanical, and he is not indisposed in any way. He has not even broken a sweat. Nothing. Being with these two women, he's acting affected, but he's not as affected. This has viscerally affected him. I honestly think he did not think that sexual desire could be this powerful. I think he understood the act, and he understood
the mechanics of it.
And the pleasure that could be had. More so, I think that he could give it. I don't think he really understood what it would do to him if he's giving that pleasure to somebody he wants just as badly.
Yeah. Whereas when you go to a brothel, I think it's very kiss this here, put that there.
Yeah. It's transactional.
Back forward, done.
He doesn't exchange money within the room. He purposely pays ahead so it can feel more like a real experience, I think. He does that for his own head. But it's still mechanical. It's still transactional. These women are doing what you paid for.
Yeah. There's no, and I mean, I do think that they enjoy themselves with him more than a regular Joe, but
yeah, he treats them like a lady. If you look at the history of women in brothels and what they had to go through, because men went to brothels for the stuff they felt was inappropriate for the marital bedroom. So all of their deviant thoughts and their deviant desires occurred in a brothel.
Yeah. So
gently bred ladies were not supposed to have that stuff done to them. That was like part of the time. Well, they understood.
We even get that in the book. Penelope's like, I don't want people to know that, like, I'm such a wanton for my husband, and she's very much like, must be demure, must not let people know that I'm
must be mindful, must be demure. I can't let everybody know that I just want to leave right now with you.
Penelope
or hide behind this curtain real quick.
She's very cute. And then we've got, as we're talking about, Colin, he's waking up. He's affected. A favorite part that you pointed out in the scene is the fact that what's he snuggled into? A yellow blanket.
His bedroom blanket is yellow.
He's got to be surrounded.
And it has been. His blanket was yellow in season 1. I went back and checked.
Yes, it was, because he needs his little snuggly of sunshine to keep him warm at night. Are you enjoying my culture over there, woman?
I am.
What nut is it today?
Oh, it's their small. It's an assortment.
But what nut is it? Baklava should
almonds,
be...
Cashews, pistachios, or walnuts. It's one of those.
Cashews have no place in a pistachio. Okay, so Greek baklava, you've got like I think it's just walnut or almonds, I can't remember. And then in Cypriot, we use a walnut almond combo. And then if it's Turkish, it is pistachio. And then if it's cashews or worst yet, peanuts, that is no culture. That is sadness. Don't do it.
Sorry, I don't know which is which.
That is
It's
cultural
just
appropriation. Don't put cashews in our in our baklava. Getting me wound up over here.
well, and I don't. I mean, this restaurant doesn't make them; they just sell them because they're packaged like
Yeah,
commercially.
yeah. My husband's making up
Okay, so are we
a
moving on to the drawing room?
my husband's making up a nice baklava this week, and I am going to
Mhm.
absolutely destroy my culture and ask for a partially pistachio baklava for the first time ever because we have a bunch of pistachios to use up, and my grandparents are going to be rolling in the grave that I'm going to make a Turkish
Mm,
baklava.
I don't know.
I've seen these viral dishes recently that I think Colin I think it would be like that eclair moment where Penelope's like, I've never had something so good in my mouth before. This is fantastic. And then Colin comes along and then the cream falls at the bottom of the eclair. Like, I'm gonna have one of those moments. And it's like a crushed, they get some crushed pistachios. They do, I think it's like a Nutella or like some kind of like chocolate and then a white chocolate kind of layer. And then they fold and then the rest of it they spread crushed pistachios and probably butter, and then they fold to make the singular baklava triangles. You know, you can
Hmm.
make a whole traditional baklava, or you can do individual little triangles. So I'm gonna try and make that as well.
Oh,
I have many pistachios.
don't send me pictures; I'll be bad.
Don't send me reminders to hop on the scale after I eat it.
Weigh in
I'm
Wednesday.
gonna need some more body positivity coming my way, please, Shonda.
Yeah, we need the body positivity.
Oh yeah. Yes. Okay. So the next scene that we're going to move on to now that we have sufficiently an hour long chatted about just FYI, we're not getting up to the Willow Tree today unless you want it to be a 2.5 hour long episode.
Well, I
So
think there's so much about the willow tree too that
it needs to be its own thing. It's so
yeah,
there's so much to unpack in that scene, from like their actual interaction to the symbolism behind everything to the colors of
yeah.
their outfits, and there's a lot. So yeah, I think we'll just do that as its own thing when we get there. So let's
But
move
we
on
need
to
this scene to go
yes,
with
yes.
the dream
Yeah, so
because
let's
yeah.
move on to the drawing room with the Bridgerton family. We will put more of the scene in side stories, the parts that pertain to just the family interactions. But because this is a Polin-centric episode and this part is very Polin-centric, thank you, Heis, that we need to bring it up with us. It goes along with the dream.
Well, and I'm gonna talk about this is a very pollen centric scene in so much that a majority of the family are involved in this conversation, but surprisingly and amazingly, Mama B
Butts
in her
out.
own world over there with Fran.
They don't
No
even
idea what she doesn't even clock that Hyacinth
know.
is reading Whistle Down.
No, like, and that was what I was going to bring up about this scene. Is Colin is very actively being awkward sauce. There is not a chance in the world that if Violet were listening, she wouldn't be like, "My son's in love. Do not act this awkwardly unless you were in love." She is so astute at this kind of thing, but only when she's actually actively paying attention. But she's so wrapped up in the whole diamond business with Francesca that she's not
Mm-hmm.
paying attention. And there's actually, upon my rewatch, so I gave myself a 2 week barrier between, or even 3 weeks possibly, from when I last watched episode 2 and 3 to watching it over the last 2 days, because I honestly think I needed to reset my brain so I could actually see things again rather than my brain just predicting, knowing what was
I did
happening
the
and not
same.
paying
Yeah.
attention. And
Mm-hmm.
I used to do the same with my essays. I would write my essays that, pretty much as soon as I got them, and then I would leave them until the day before they were due, and then I would edit because I
Yep.
needed the strict timeline of, okay, it's due tomorrow, you need to edit, but I would need a really solid piece of time that my brain wouldn't re-recognize all the words that I'd written
Mm-hmm.
and not edit it slowly.
And wonder if you like, did I miss something or did I
Yeah,
say something twice? Like the
yeah,
more you read something, the more it just blends together. The more you
yeah.
watch something, the more it blends together. I did the same thing And then I've noticed quite a few things in the last couple of days as I've watched things that I mean, it was refreshing and it was exciting to me, like for how much I had watched this and how much I was catching, and
Hmm.
to see something for the first time and be like, oh gosh, like it was great.
Yeah, so for anyone like
Um,
us who absolutely spammed the show when it came out and then think, okay, I need to distance myself from it. I need some space. We 100% did that. Even as people who actively, we've got to watch it for our episodes. I mean, I was commenting we do have a messenger chat group with a few people as well, and they were asking questions, and even I was making mistakes because I hadn't watched it in a few weeks, and certain ballroom scenes
and
were kind of blending together for me.
yeah, I started noticing we were talking about a scene, thinking it was another scene. And, because we watched it so much that things were blending together. So,
Yeah.
that
And
was
because
part of the reason I wanted to do my detox too.
yeah, they were blending. And so and that's what happens when you're not watching one episode per week, when you're just sitting there for 6 hours straight with it
I
on in the
was watching
background.
one season per day.
Well, that was the thing, when you're watching 6 episodes straight or something, and you've just got it on in the background while you're doing other things, you can hear it, you're somewhat paying attention, but you're not really, and it does just blend together. So apologies for anyone. And I think Patty and I do a pretty good job of recognizing when we do make mistakes, and we're very open about, hey, this was a mistake. We'll go back and correct ourselves, or make edits to what we're saying.
Or yeah,
Um,
or when we find new information or we see somebody has a thought process that, you know, interests us or
yeah,
triggers us or, leads us down another path. Like that's the whole point of being a part of a fandom
yeah.
is, enjoying it with others. It
And
is being part of a fandom is definitely a group activity.
one of my favorite things is when people say, "Oh, I listened to your podcast episodes and then I went and rewatched the episode and I saw so many new things." And I love that because that's exactly what we're here for. We want to help people see those things. We want to share that love, that fascination, and this is what we're here to do: is enjoy it, and share our enjoyment and our peculiar
And pass the
our
time
our
until the
peculiar
next season comes out.
peculiarity, peculiarity.
Peculiarities.
Can't say that word today. Oh, and then me, and then me. Yes, Nemo, I also struggle.
Well, and that's
Peculiarities.
what's funny. Like Debling himself says he's peculiar and he's
Yes.
trying to find someone else who is down with their peculiarities. But when Colin's trying to think of something bad to say about the guy, he chooses particular.
Yeah.
Like you could have said peculiar and it would have fit. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, but he was trying, he could not think of anything bad because this was on paper. Debling was perfect on
Well,
paper.
you know what? So I used to use the word unique in a really mean way. Instead of saying that's ugly, I'd be like, that's very unique. And then I'm watching Anne with an E, and she's like, I've come to the terms with the fact that I'm just unique and I love myself for that. And I'm like, I love you for it too, Anne. And now I'm like, unique is good. Unique is not bad, but sometimes it definitely comes with the connotation you say it with, the intonation.
Yeah.
That's very unique, as opposed to, oh
Yeah.
wow, that's so unique. Definitely tone
Or like,
matters.
when they talk about Featherington clothes or, talking to Portia or whatever, they'll be like, outfits very vibes. They are using a positive descriptor, but the way they say it is like
Negative.
that,
And you know
or
what?
like,
I think that they use
narc mom be narking. Like that's not my favorite color, but it's winning on you. I've never liked that color. Winning on
yes.
you.
Thanks, Mum. A compliment sandwich is meant to have compliment, insult, compliment. Where's my second compliment to make me
That
feel
was
better
more.
after the
I know
slap
that was
bum?
more like compliment avocado toast. There's only one piece of bread. It's an open face sandwich.
Slaps you in the face with the
And then
sandwich.
it
Just
comes
slaps your
it comes
face.
with the gravy on top of her not leaving her ring alone, not leaving her sleeve alone, not leaving her hair alone. Like after she says this, she feels bad. You can tell she feels bad.
Yeah.
And she's like messing with her hair, messing with her sleeve. And then she's
Yeah.
playing with her engagement ring, going, where's your dashing fiance?
Yeah.
Like, I've got to gush over you because I just
Oh,
screwed up.
Portia, you're such a menace.
But okay, so drawing room.
Okay,
I think it's also important to
the two
say that
Lukes. I love you. I love you
yeah,
so much.
Violet is wearing a very unique dress in this scene, and I think it does show how she is kind of she's got two things going on because that one whole half
Mm,
of her skirt is
half of it.
purple. Yeah. And I watched a video where it wasn't the actual costumers, it was somebody talking through the costumes and what they
The
believed
transition is
the clothing
coming.
meant. And she's a very empathetic person, and the purple is supposed to be empathy. But she is so like she's so focused on Fran and what's going on with that situation that she just cannot fully commit to having empathy for her other children.
I
It's
see it
present,
slightly
but
differently. I know that they don't use costuming, so we could just be reading into something here that is totally unrelated. But because the morning colors are that lavendery, deeper gray kind of purple tone, I wonder whether she hasn't gone back into mourning, but this is her final stage of mourning before she's ready to accept moving on with Lord Anderson. As in, having feelings for someone else has brought up some of those feelings of loss again for her in order for her to be able to move on.
I mean, it could
I'm
be,
probably
but
just massively overreading here, but
I
yeah.
mean, she hasn't even met the man yet, so
No, but this is like them saying like coming
that could be.
because we
Or
know
she's
that.
kind of feeling it, but not feeling it. Like she's the reason she's so focused on Francesca finding a love match is because she's starting to think about could
Yeah,
she have a second chance at love
yeah.
also? Like she's projecting onto Francesca a little bit, kind of
But
thing. But yeah, we do have the bros kind
let's talk
of.
about the bros. We'll skip the family pet. We'll come back to him. Inside stories. The bloody balloon. Oh, I love those siblings.
Well, and the
And
fact that he fell off the roof. I mean, you fell off the roof and all you have is a sheet holding your arm on. Like,
it didn't
why? You
detach.
like you, but I mean, he should have at least broken it. Their roof is not close to the ground.
But I love how you like his arm like detached. It did not detach, Patty. It's still
But what I'm saying is that is not enough. That is not enough to show me this boy fell from a roof.
wow,
I think it
maybe.
would have been funnier if he'd have been shot by the arrow somehow and he would have that sling.
So Colin walks into the room and immediately Benedict is like on that boy's case. Oh, you slept in rather late. Did I? Something keep you up? Not at all. But I slept peacefully. No
Well, and I
sooner did
think
my
that
head hit the
because
pillow that I was met with complete and immediate darkness. Not even dream. And he's
like congratulations.
no. He's like, I thought I drank all the tea. So why do you seem like you've been sneaking the tea without me here, boy? Because he's been drinking the Penelope tea.
But what
Nothing
cracks me
makes
up,
Colin delusional like the Penelope tea.
I know, but what cracks me up about it is this is so a TMI moment. Like thou dost
Oversharing to
protest.
compensate.
Yeah, thou dost protest too much. Like he is trying to say the exact opposite happened, and he kind of gives himself away because Benedict was just like, congratulations.
Like this,
like,
there's something else
like
going
I
on
don't
here.
believe you. Yeah, like
And I
I
love
don't
that
believe
Hyacinth
you.
takes this moment to run up to him as if she knows. She's a little sneaky Noah.
It's like,
She
I
runs
just
up
want
to
to
him.
let you know that I think it was great what you did for Penelope the other week. But do
She
you
knows.
think that she's saying it to egg at him? Or do you think she is assuming that Eloise being on the outs with her kind of knows and she's kind of digging with Eloise sitting right there? I think Hyacinth is that deep into everybody that I think
Mm.
she's trying to call out two people at the same
I
time.
think she's just stirring the pot because that is 100%. Look at the way that she plays games. She's 100% a
Mm-hmm.
stirrer to get to her end goal, and her end goal is Penelope as her sister and Eloise and Penelope back on the inn again. So I think it's a double whammy, and she plays the game bloody well, might I say.
Mm-hmm.
Hyacinth has definitely grown to be my favorite character list. Not that I hide it.
But I love like when she says Penelope is
Quite fortunate to have you as a friend.
yeah, when she says Penelope's quite fortunate to have you as a friend and she emphasizes you,
Mm-hmm.
Benedict looks up at her and winks at her. Like
Mm-hmm.
he scrunches his face in kind of a on the nose, but also aren't you cute for figuring it out? Like
Yeah.
and I clocked that early on.
It also
Like
almost looks like a little bit
and
like a aren't you like that's sweet of you. Like it is a
it's very
sweet
much an
moment.
aren't you cute, but I also I think it's like,
Aren't you
to
cute, but
me,
I
it's
see
like
what you're doing.
you figured it out. To
Hmm.
me, it's like Benedict. You can't tell me Benedict doesn't know.
No.
And that Colin, this play is, I think Benedict's trying to get Colin to say something because he
I
needs to
really
say
hope
something.
that in the next season, if they have their fencing match, that Benedict actually admits, yes, I knew you had feelings for Penelope all along. I was just waiting for you to come to
But
that
I'm thinking,
realization.
I'm saying he confided in him because how did he get the damn key to the house?
Mm,
How did he get the key to the townhouse so fast?
yeah. But this
That
scene
comes
is
from
just,
the person in charge of the properties and the
yes.
ledger books, folks.
And then
And that would have been Benedict.
the last part that I wanted to point out is I don't know why my brain never put these two scenes together because it literally goes from one scene to the next scene. Because what is the next scene that we get is someone calling upon Penelope. And so in our minds, I think what has happened is like the first time I watch it, someone's calling upon Penelope, and of course Colin and Penelope just had their kiss last night, so your brain's like, oh my god, is he calling upon her to come marry her? And so your brain's like immediately Colin, 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 you know. And so I completely bypass the fact that Eloise leaves the room when he says, well, it's a shame that anyone even found out about what Penelope and I were up to. And Eloise leaves the room in a, what I thought at the time, what the way I
Was
interpreted
like a
it
huff.
was a
Yeah.
huff. It seemed like a huff, and then Colin's like, "Oh no, I've upset my sister. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant I'm unhappy that Penelope's hurting. I didn't mean it as a barb at you. Yes, you
Yeah, he
caused
starts to
it.
go after her, but then he stops.
Yes, but then he stops. And so I read it as, okay, they're on the outs. But actually, Eloise takes this moment as, okay, yeah, he is right. I effed up. I need to go make this right. And she goes straight from that room, straight to Penelope's house to apologize.
Right.
And I don't know why my
Well, and
brain
I
just
think
never
in that
connected
moment,
it.
if you listen to the conversation, because we know this has been at least a week, because Hyacinth says the other week, okay?
Yeah.
And then when the way Colin's talking about it, because he's not ready to reveal anything, he's acting like he hasn't seen Penelope since it happened.
Mm.
Like we don't know how. It's a shame that that Whistledown wrote about it. It's a shame that it even got out. Sounds like a jab to Eloise, but it's also his way of covering up. Like, I haven't seen Penelope. I don't know what she's thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know how she's feeling. And Eloise realizes in that moment she hasn't been seen in society. It appears like Colin hasn't seen her at all either. So, what does Eloise always do when somebody hasn't been in society and they're down in their dumps? Like she has to go and make sure she's okay, regardless of what their feelings are for each other at the moment.
Yeah.
And it was not slow. She was like,
Yeah.
excuse me, and had to go right then.
But for some
And that
reason,
says a lot about her as a friend, because when she realizes Colin doesn't have his finger on the pulse of Penelope, pun intended, she goes running, because in her world, the whole reason she could be in this huff and the whole reason she could process this whole betrayal that she feels is there, and what is this friendship really, and the whole reason she tells Colin she does not want him, she needs Penelope to have someone. She says that in the carriage toward going to the full moon ball. But when she realizes it sounds like Colin hasn't seen her or talked to her either, she immediately has to go know if she's okay, because she still very much loves her friend.
Yeah, and I think that often happens if we're having a fight with a friend, whatever that fight is about. I mean, within reason, when something big happens in their life, you kind of just get over it to some degree. Like we can see that Eloise is 100% there, but she's enough there that she needs to check on Penelope. Like this is her saying, I'm still here. I still love you. I just need time.
Yeah, I think it was an oh God moment of she has just been humiliated. She has just had this secret outed. She probably thinks her life is over and she is stuck in a house with her mother and sisters, because if anyone knows how her family really is to her, it's Eloise. Eloise is so familiar in that house. She can walk in the house and walk up to that girl's room without being announced. It happened in episode 6, right? 5 or 6. So she has definitely witnessed what Penelope has gone through. And she knows, like in her worst moment, all she has is a non-support system. And so she immediately went.
Portia's not like your standard narc. She does it in the open quite instantly. She doesn't hide it like a lot of like really covert, or the covert narcs, you know, seem like the perfect husband, the perfect wife, or whatever in public.
But
and
at home, it's
only
different.
Yeah, whereas Portia doesn't hide it from anyone. She is quite out and
Yeah.
proud about her barbs.
In my experience, I heard from more than one person of my beliefs about your husband are based on what you tell me because I'm not seeing this.
Hmm.
So if this is true, you staying with him, because at the time I was, for whatever reasons that were my choice, if you're staying with him, that is counterintuitive to you wanting me to believe that this stuff is actually happening.
Yeah. And I think that's why
And
covert narcs are
that
the
was
hardest to deal with.
yeah, and that was please never say that to somebody who has revealed to you what they're going through, because that is a form of victim shaming. You just, because there are reasons people can't leave.
Hmm.
There are reasons. If they're not leaving, it's not easy to leave a narcissist at all. You have to do a lot of planning in a way that they don't find out. And if you reveal things even to some very trusted sources like family, it can get out and it can get back to that person, and then your life.
Yeah.
So that's how coverts work. And I think that's why,
I think that's
with my
why
own experience, why I think Debling is one. And we wouldn't find out unless him and Penn actually got married. Because the devaluing and stuff, there were little digs and things like that, but nothing
I
huge.
can see that there were parts that are suspicious, but I reserve judgment until I've seen enough behavior to really I can't diagnose. I'm
No,
not.
we're not psychiatrists.
Shall
But
I
let's just, if I was,
one of my girlfriends is a psychiatrist. Shall I get her to watch Bridgerton and say she's not a psychiatrist? Sorry, she's a psychologist. But I know she was
well,
diagnosing someone with that exact thing
yeah,
yesterday. So
that dude I like on YouTube who does the therapizing of movies and stuff, and the TV shows, his TV show channel is, he'll just say Bridgerton in therapy or something like that. And he has several videos, and one is, Colin, Penelope, and Debling, that whole triangle.
Mhm.
And he likes Debling, and I'm like, what kind of therapist are you?
I don't
Because I
dislike
see it.
Devlin. I don't like him for Penelope. I just don't dislike his character.
I dislike his character,
I know
because how
you
are you
do.
going to stand there? How are you going to stand there and let somebody completely humiliate a person and let them get away with it? How are you going to not come back into that person's life that you're trying to show some sort of interest, even if it's not romantic? You don't show up again until she is completely hit rock bottom with her social stock, and she feels horrible about herself. I mean, she flat out says social contagion and pathetic. She's pathetic. That's when he shows up. And that's when he tries to like morale boost her in a way. But that's when you're that, I mean, she's lying flat on the floor. So what he's doing is the same as love bombing. He's trying to tell her that what she did was the right thing to do, and it was admirable, when she's flat out saying, I made a huge mistake in doing that. Like, he just gives me the creep. Anyways, but something I wanted to point out about this too. Not about Debling. This is, I'm totally jumping. Tangent, but I'm going back to the real thing. I was just on a tangent. So we're talking about costuming with Violet.
Is this a side tangent, or is this back onto the original tangent?
We're back onto the original. That's just how my brain jumps. So if you pause and you go up and you look at Colin's vest, because they don't have him in his jacket. He's not ready to go out for the day yet, because when we see him in the park and he sees her, he's got his full jacket and everything on. But he's still wearing the same vest. But if you go up real close to the vest, it's a pretty interesting design. It looks brown, and I think it's more of like a kind of like a red tinged brown. But there's
it's very gray toned.
There's a little design on it, and if you look close enough, if you look close, the design is like there's little wings, and so it gives off very kind of the whole butterfly vibe, but in an abstract way. And then the buttons are little like flowers. They're little flowers, like
flowers.
Like little flowers, and the whole pattern of that vest, it gives off like winged, like bird butterfly wings.
And it reminds me of
saving
dragon.
that. I didn't even post that in the group or nothing. I've been holding on to that for dear life.
It reminds me of little like dragonfly wings almost, or fantails actually.
Yeah, but and it looks different in different spots. Like
it does.
I purposely screenshot. I'm going to send this one to you. Purposely screenshot one specific one that I think looks very kind of butterfly-esque, or even bee, like a bee landing on a flower. So check
Not
your
me,
phone in
like
this.
micro pausing, squinting within an inch of my life pattern.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so many. It's very patterned. I really love this
It is.
vest a lot. And the little buttons being flowers are just,
It's adorable.
but the one I sent you very much looks like how a bee would look landing on a flower.
Penelope catches the eye of nature-loving Lord Devlin to the dismay of other admirers. Thank you for just calling Colin another admirer.
No offense, but if you look at all the blurbs for all the episodes, Colin is only mentioned once, and I don't think it has anything to do. It has to do with the balloon, not Penelope.
This reminds me of a fan tale.
Yeah. But I like, if you think about how a bee would look, like a nature video, how like a bumblebee or a bee would look landing on a flower.
Yeah, it looks like there's a little bee right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I have saved that. Like, don't they have dates? Yeah, it was July 29th. I've had this information.
Just a week, wow.
Holding on.
Yes. So I think we are going to leave it there for today. And I think we will have to do the willow tree as a whole separate scene of its own. You know what we are like. We have the best of intentions to get through it. And then the tangents just
and there's
coming.
I mean, yeah, and there's still more I could even say. Like, Luke Newton in this scene is chef's kiss.
I love it. And
perfectly awkward.
Know, like, I love all the Polin scenes for the romance, the cute first time, the fusses and all the rest of it. But honestly, if I have to be honest, my favorite is always any scenes where there's mass Bridgertons together, because it's always funny and just joyous, and getting to see a family interacting that actually like each other, and they joke, but it's not mean-spirited. They jest, they snark.
And we have season 4 coming up, so I think that a lot of these scenes that are, since Antony's out of the way, and Benedict and Colin really get to grow their relationship, because I really do think Colin is very important to Benedict's relationship with Sophie getting anywhere, that they really wanted to depict the growth of that relationship in this season, much like they did with Penelope and Colin in season 2, kind of growing and moving forward.
Well, because realistically, Sophie and Benedict start more as friends. Really. Not if you think of her at the masquerade.
I would say like comrades.
Yeah, but the Lady
Silver, I'm thinking of when he rescues her, not... Yeah, the Lady in Silver is like a fantasy night. I don't think that counts for either one of them, except for like the electricity of their connection. Because facades are down. I mean, he has no idea who she is. She knows who he is, but because he believes he's not known to her, he acts his truest self, I would say, his most flirtiest, truest self, and they really connect. But the story really starts when he rescues her, and they're more like comrades in arms in a way.
And you know what the funny thing is I think actually a lot of fans feel the same way. When I think back through the sex scenes, and when I say sex scenes, I mean scenes with any intimacy between Penelope and Colin, I don't really count the dream scene in my mind. Like, I kind of bypass it. Because it's not real. It's not Pen and Colin both consenting to it. It's fabricated from one side of what Colin wants. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, no, we're owed more scenes, because that wasn't a real scene. We need more scenes.
Well, yeah, and I don't equate that either, because they, in my opinion, they purposely, just like, I mean, we have a dream sequence with Daphne, and that doesn't count, but also nothing really happens in that. I mean, we could have had a dream that a heck of a lot more happened than what happened because of Colin's experience, and they chose not to for the story, which is important. But yes, we had to ramp up the trajectory of Benedict and get a lot of character development, because he is such a complex character, to go into season 4. But I think it was in editing in the second half, it was used as a time filler, as a way to show the progression of time. And it really didn't progress this, like we were talking about, the scene where he's talking to Tilly and his actor choice of his hands, that showed more of his character development and showed more of where he was as a character than making them be Colin's talking about going to see Cressida tomorrow. Sex scene. It's tomorrow. He's at Cressida's house.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, they did it a little bit in season 1 with like Sienna against the tree scene, and Sienna against the wall scene, and Sienna in the beds. But it wasn't cut in the way that was so jarring. Penelope and Colin fighting. Threesome.
Because all of the Sienna scenes were purposeful.
Sausages and all the holes.
The
Like,
one against the tree was, this is not your normal Regency period drama.
yes. Yeah.
That was the purpose of that one. Sienna against the wall, she flips the script and she becomes the dominant party and he becomes the submissive, and he lets her because he is so tired of always being the responsible party. So we learn a lot about his character in that scene. That's the whole point. These sex scenes are not gratuitous, but Benedict's are. Benedict's have always been. I mean, the art student girl, like every experience Benedictus has so far has just been added gratuitous sex because somebody loves his character and loves Luke Thompson's body.
Tessa?
Art student, or the person who just loves Luke
student.
Thompson and said, I'm gonna make him have sex in every season.
So, the art student.
I'm gonna have him disrobe every single season. We're gonna figure out a way to make that happen.
I mean, I'm not complaining.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's how it feels to me, that it's not necessarily, I mean, it'll all fit together when season 4 comes out, because that was the point, is that he isn't able to settle on any one thing. That is part of his character development. It's supposed to feel disjointed, and it's supposed to feel like, why is this happening? Because he doesn't even know why it's happening.
Yeah, I think we will do like a breakdown of Benedict at some point, but for today we're going to leave it there because my little boy is quarter past. So
it's 1:12 and I have a baby shower to go to tomorrow.
Yay, they're not exhausting at all. For today, gentle listeners, we will leave it there and continue on next week's episode, where we will get to discuss the willow tree scene, amongst potentially other things, but it's us, so no promises. If you have anything in particular you would like us to cover, or any Bridgerton knowledge you would like to share, please head to our Facebook page, The Ladies Bridgerton. And I would also like to note on that little caveat is that I absolutely love when people who are listening to the podcast comment on our Facebook page or in the Messenger group and like to add on to or question or, you know, anything what we've put into the pod and build discussion around it. It's absolutely my favorite thing to get to interact with people, interacting with, you know, stuff we've talked about in the pod, and get to deepen those thoughts, because we do try to keep it to the hour and a half mark in each podcast. And honestly, that is,
and we don't get to everything.
That is editing ourselves down. Okay, it doesn't seem like it, but it is. So we love getting to interact with you. So please, 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 if you ever feel like it, please feel free to ask the questions, make the comments. We love interacting with you.
And share. If you have a Bridgerton fan in your life, share us.
Yeah.
You know, we are building a community to help us during the drought between seasons, and we love every minute of it. And I mean, wouldn't it be cool if we grow enough where we get to manifesting
more likely
Luke Newton on the pod, Luke Newton on the pod, Luke Newton on the pod?
I would
talk to Nicola Coughlan too.
Yeah,
I do mean that.
No, I meant
but
like
we wouldn't
you
be
getting
like
to go in person.
Nah, I would love to have them come to our pod because it is so free, you know, freestyle, and
I could probably wrangle my way to the Aussie press tour. I could do that. I'm going to manifest that. You can cover America. I'll cover Australia, because at least
I can go to New York. Okay.
Yeah. So if you are enjoying our podcast, please remember to click follow on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you are listening. And once again, thank you for listening to the musings of two mad women, yours truly, Tash the Kiwi.
And Lady Patty.